Previously, we created a new project from the empty project template, and in doing so, we created the song with a single track, the classic electric piano track. With the exception of working with GarageBand's built-in loops, anytime you want to add an instrument or sound to your recording, you have to first create a new track to hold the sound you're recording or bringing in. And you can create a new track either by choosing Track, New Track, or pressing Option-Command-N on your keyboard, or by clicking the New Track button up here. Either one of those options opens up this New Track dialog box. And here you have to decide whether it's going to be a software instrument track, one of two types of audio or real instrument tracks, or a drummer track. Software instrument tracks are for recording sounds from a MIDI source. We'll be getting into this much more later, but MIDI stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. Essentially, a software track is a track where you'll either be recording your performance on a MIDI piano keyboard or some other MIDI instrument like drums, or where you'll be bringing in a software instrument loop. A MIDI performance is not actually a recording of sounds. It's a recording of data that tells GarageBand things like what notes were played, how long they were held, how hard they were hit, and so on. With this data recorded, you can play back your performance with any of GarageBand's built-in software instruments. For example, if you originally recorded a flute sound, with just a few clicks, you can change it to a saxophone, a guitar, or a piano. Another advantage of software instruments is that you can easily fix wrong notes or add missing ones. But the main takeaway right now is that software instruments are virtual instruments. An audio track, on the other hand, is used when you want to record a real instrument. You create a real instrument track when you intend to sing or play into a microphone, or plug your instrument, an electric guitar for example, into your Mac. The recording on a real instrument track is not data, but actual audio, so it's not as easy to fix wrong or missing notes. GarageBand does have some features that let you fix things like timing and intonation, but you don't get nearly the control you do with software instruments. Of course, the real advantage of recording real instruments is that you get real instrument sounds. Now, some of the software instruments sound amazingly realistic, and they should because they were created with real instrument samples, but recording a real instrument track lets you capture the sound of your own personal instrument or voice. The third type of track is a drummer track. This is brand new to this version of GarageBand. Drummer is a tool for adding realistic drum parts to your projects, which you can highly customize to fit your song. Drummer parts change dynamically, so it's much more advanced than dragging in pre-recorded drum loops, which can change to conform to the key and tempo of your song, but the parts that are actually being played in those loops never change. With a drummer track, you get fine-grained control over the types of parts that are being played, down to which drums are being hit, which style of drummer is playing, and much more. I'll talk more about drummer in its own movie later, but for now, just know that you can only have one drummer track per project, so most of the time you're going to be creating either software or audio tracks in your projects. Now, we've already seen what happens when you select a software instrument track, but just to quickly review, if I select it and click Create, that creates a second software instrument track. Let's create another new track, and this time I'll select an audio track. The option here with the microphone is what you'll select if you want to record anything using either a microphone to capture sounds out of the air, like a real guitar amp, a vocal, string instruments, and so on, or if you want to use an audio input device that you've plugged an instrument into. I'll talk more about these devices later, but I'm referring to devices that connect to your Mac, usually via USB, to capture your audio. With that selected down below here, as long as I have details toggled open, I can choose the input the microphone or audio input device is connected to. In this case, I have no inputs selected, but I could choose, say, input 1. I can check this box if I want to be able to monitor my playback. And below that, clicking either of these arrows opens up the audio input-output preferences, as you can see back here. Just close that for now, and I'll leave everything here as is. I can always change these settings at any time later if I need to. And now I have an audio track. Just going to turn off the monitoring there. You can see it's picking up the audio from the microphone I'm speaking on right now. Now let's click the Add Track button one more time. And this time I'll select the guitar option here under Audio. This is the option to use if you want to connect a guitar to your Mac directly through an audio input device, and then use GarageBand's immense collection of built-in virtual amps. Notice with this track selected, I see a wide selection of amp types and individual amps here in the library. I've got the category of clean guitar, crunch guitar, distorted guitar, experimental guitar, and each one of these contains several different amp types. We'll spend a lot more time working with these settings later in the course. So that's how you create a new track in GarageBand. Again, it's important to know the difference between a real and a software instrument track if you're going to be recording yourself playing. It's not quite as important if you're going to be working exclusively with loops, but it can make a difference there too, as we'll see in the next chapter.